session of Canvas Live. Canvas Live sessions are presented by Canvas community members and/or instructor employees to help Canvas users improve and enhance their teaching and learning with Canvas. Today, we are continuing in our Google LTI series, and we're going to be talking about worksheet wonders. Basically, it's another way of saying cloud assignments. So we're going to dive into cloud assignments with Google LTI. My name is B-Rai. I'm a community manager here at Instructure, and with me is Nick Demas. He's also a trainer and instructor. Say good morning, Nick. So we're going to talk about the Google LTI. This is a great start, or we'll create a sort of a framework to our conversation. So we'll just go briefly into what is the Google LTI, how do you install it, and then we'll dive into the specifics on how to leverage the LTI for assignments. The Google LTI allows the users to leverage more Google tools and functionalities within Canvas instead of toggling back and forth between Google Classroom and Canvas. And of course, it automates some of the permissioning as well as you do share privileges or share viewership with your students. To install the Google LTI, you basically have to add it via EduApps. Then you'll have to configure it in Canvas and then authorize access so that Canvas can access your drive. So if you were in your Canvas course, you would go into settings, you would click on the apps tab at the top, and then you would do a search for Google and the Google apps will show up. You would click on the Google apps and you would get a pop-up that would give you the prompts to add the app. In order to find the consumer key and the shared secret, in order to type those in, you have to open up another tab in your browser and go to eduappcenter.com. Do a search for Google Apps there, and you will see a link at the bottom once you pull up Google Apps that will give you the link to the to be able to generate the LTI key and the secret. Once you generate that, you would grab those codes and you go back to your course, install it back there, or copy it, paste it there, and then be prompted to access your account. So once it's installed into your course or your Canvas instance, you can do it the same way in both places. Then once you want to initiate Google, it would ask you to authorize your access. You would authorize it, and then everything from that point on should be pretty seamless between the integration between your Google Drive and your Canvas course. Today we're going to talk about cloud assignments. Basically, this is another way of saying assignment templates or worksheets, something where you want your student to access a type of file and leverage that file for projects or homework or things like that. Some examples that we might see in the classroom would be worksheets where you want your student to fill in the worksheet. This is great if you're especially new to Canvas and you already have these worksheets pre-created and you don't want to sort of retype them in a survey or a quiz, which, you know, we've seen people do where you can sort of translate a worksheet into a quiz format. But if you already have these documents and you've already created them, this is a good way to quickly share it with your students and have them fill in the worksheet and then submit it back to you. Another example of leveraging cloud assignments would be for project templates as well. Here's an example of a Google spreadsheet where you're asking your students to fill out specifics in a spreadsheet and then submit it to you. So all the calculations and all of the configurations of the spreadsheet are already there. They just have to go in and fill out some information and send it back to you. So we've seen this happen in fitness classes and accounting classes, things like that. So lots of opportunity there. So those are some main ways we're looking at cloud assignments and leveraging them in the actual assignment setting. So today we're going to talk about how to create a cloud assignment in Canvas, how to submit the cloud assignment, and how to grade a cloud assignment. I'll go ahead and show it to you without the Google LTI of how you potentially would do all of this if you did not install the Google LTI. And then I'll turn it over to Nick, who will actually demo what this all would look like if you had installed the Google LTI, just for comparison. So all of this is still possible. Sometimes it's just with the Google LTI makes it a little bit more convenient and less click less clicks to get to the same thing. So here's an example of an assignment. In the past, if you wanted your students to have access to a document that you wanted them to modify and resubmit, you would either have the link to download that specific template or that worksheet, prompt them to save it as their, with a different title or a name that perhaps includes their student name in there, and then resubmit it into Canvas. And so the submission type might be a file upload corresponding to those prompts as well. So that's kind of the old way of doing it. Another way that you could have done something similar to this is if you were a Google school, would be to take a template and then make multiple copies of it, one for each student, and then share that with the student with edit privileges. So that way they all have a copy, their individual copy, and then they would use that before they would submit it into Canvas. So those are two ways, sort of without the LTI, that we could potentially create the same scenario. As far as submitting an assignment, a student, once they either downloaded that template or that worksheet or accessed it and updated it in their Google Drive, if they have Google, they would submit it either as a file upload, especially if they don't have Google, they could just submit it as a file upload. Or if they do have Google Docs enabled into their Canvas account, then they would just click on the Google Doc Drive, Google Doc tab, and then select the document from there. Now, just to bear in mind, Google Doc is not the Google Drive LTI integration. Google Doc is just something that the user could set up in their user account. And Google Doc only pulls up documents. So if you're sharing things like spreadsheets or slides and things like that, it wouldn't show up here. So if your students do have Google Doc enabled, perhaps somewhere in the prompts of your assignment, you might want to clarify the difference. And then once the assignment is submitted from the student perspective, in the back end as a teacher, when you're grading that submission, it shows up sort of as a PDF, and you can annotate just like you would any other document. So from the back end, it doesn't look any different. So the process is like that if you were not leveraging the Google LTI. I'm going to turn it over to Nick, who's going to demo when you do install the Google LTI, what this process would look like. Nick?
Hey, thank you, Birai, and good morning, everybody. I wasn't quick on my fingertips on that one. I wasn't able to move to the next slide and jump over and say hello when you prompted me to say hello. Let's just blame it on Friday. All right, so I'm going to jump.
Okay. We thought you were ignoring us. I was like, hey, say good morning, Nick, and you were just like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm just not doing it.
It's not happening today. No way.
It's okay. All right. Sorry. Go ahead.
I love it. That's great. All right. So let's jump into the course. What I've done is I've already set up the two things that I'm going to show. Now, if you've been sticking with us throughout the series, we've leaned a lot on Google Docs. So I thought, let's just switch it up a little bit today. And instead of building a worksheet through a Google Doc, which is going to be easy and a great thing to do, and probably be the thing that you're going to be using more than many of the other tools. When I say other tools, I'm talking about slides and spreadsheets. But this showcases the difference by going in and looking at spreadsheets and slides today, because we're dealing with similar functionality when we bring in those other components. Let's just keep the docs in the back of the mind. Let's keep on thinking about docs, using those as a way to build these cloud assignments that we can then grade. Maybe even build rubrics around grading those pieces. Question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4. Really simple things that we can build out for our courses. But today, let's look at spreadsheets and slides through this demo. I'm going to go into this first piece, and we'll jump in and take a look at the building a worksheet. And this is something that I did build ahead of time so that I could showcase it today rather than having you watch me build a spreadsheet. I also want to point out that Birai did a much better job with her spreadsheets than I did. All right, since we're going to be building these cloud assignments as an external tool, it is important / imperative that we actually build our rubric first. And so let's make sure that we hit that plus rubric when we get into this area, and so that we can build our spreadsheet rubric, or that we can find a rubric that already exists and be able to pull it into our course, depending on where we have placed these things. Let's go with this 4-question rubric. No, we're going to go with a 5-paragraph. This rubric is completely unrelated to this assignment that we are going through. But we're just bringing it in so that we can see a rubric or have a rubric that we are going to be working through this assignment with. All right, so I have the rubric. Again, first step, very important. Make sure that we do have this first. Now we are going to go in and we will be able to edit our work. So when we're building out these pieces, of course, it's always important to have good instructions. If you've been through our trainings through the Google LTI or Office 365, or if you have been in our trainings through the training team, if you're part of the subscription training, you have heard us trainers say, have good naming conventions, be detailed in your instructions, and be consistent. Now, those are kind of the keys that we try to espouse as trainers for Canvas. And so they would apply here. Now, since we're doing these live demos, then it's always going to be, I'm not going to be detailed on this assignment creation. So we'll just go with this. Please be detailed with your instructions. We'll give that 3 exclamation marks. And then we're going to go through a lot of the same assignment process that we're going through before. We're not changing significantly the overall process, the rubric piece being the exception. Building the rubric first. So we're still going to be able to denote the number of points that we want, and we can still set these up in our specific assignment groups. We might even have a worksheet group per chapter for whatever book we're reading, K-12 or higher ed, it would apply there. And we can still set our different grade displays. We can go anywhere from points to not graded to GPA scale to our letter grade. Let's go with letter grade today. We can still change our grading scheme, and we can still work through, we want to work differently through our submission type. So this is important to pay attention to. When we're building these assignments, we want to make sure to use our external tool option now. That's why we're creating the rubric first, is because we're pulling in through the external tool. So from this piece, I'm just going to find, that's my easy way to do it. I'm going to find, then I'm going to select my Google Doc Cloud assignment option, Google option basically. And that internet magic is going to occur where I'm going to be able to jump into these pieces. Now this is my Google Drive that we're looking at here. This is what I use as a Canvas trainer. I have all kinds of information in here, so you're really taking a peek at what I am sharing and what I have at my disposal. I built this out in a cloud assignment, and I've built this out so there's kind of a few layers deep so that I can get to these different pieces. Here are some remnants from other assignments that have been created. But for this one, we are on the spreadsheet. So we built out this nutrition tracker as a cloud assignment. Select it once. Don't do what might be habitual for you, and that is to double click. Make sure you just click it once so you get that little check mark on the right-hand side, and then submit. And go ahead and hit select there. And you'll see there it is. I'm not going to open this in a new tab. I'm going to keep it there. And now, apply a due date. If we are cross-listing courses, we can apply this to our different sections that are part of the class. And we can also use the normal functionality that we have here. We can go in and set our available from and available until date. I'm not that good on due dates. I like the due date, and I don't mind late work, so I don't often set that available until. Plus, I'm not really good when it comes to students who are weeping and asking for more time. So I'm going to save and publish this assignment. It is now going to be something that my students can interact with. And essentially what it has done, what Google has done, is created a copy of this for the students. I'm not going through the process of creating copies for them. All right, so that's one. Let's go into the second cloud assignment that we are going to build. And this time we're going to do it as a slide. So this is basically a review of the process, only we're checking a slide this time, or creating a slide this time. So I'm going to go into this worksheet slides. Now, again, if you were using a Google Doc, same process, you'd just be selecting the doc. Since we're doing the external tool, let's repeat it again. Rubric first, build your rubric first, find a rubric, build a rubric. Everybody learn to love rubrics, as they are going to be your friend. Before moving to Instructure, I had a job where I relied on rubrics quite a bit for reviewing student work. I'm going to hit edit to actually get into this edit. So I had to use rubrics quite a bit, and when I say quite a bit, I'd say in the neighborhood of 1,000 times during the month of March as I went out and worked with students. That happened around the state of Utah. All right, so we can build out our assignment here. Again, we're in the rich content editor. We can give great instructions. We can include our images. We can prompt students to utilize those images to describe what's going on, include some of the supplemental information, have them review a show, and then fill out a worksheet based on that show. You could use YouTube or some other tools for that. We can denote our points, display grade as. And for the submission type, once again, we are going to go with external tool. An external tool, we are going to go in and get Google Docs Cloud Assignment. Now we're going through my well-organized path to get into these pieces. I'm kind of joking about that. Try to be as organized as possible. That really helps. Know where I'm going here, that have the naming conventions to help me. And this time I'm going to select this slide right here and submit. Remember, just select it once, make sure you have that check, and then submit, and then hit select, and give your assignment a due date. And then I'm going to save and publish so that I can go visit this as a student. Let me just go back and double check in modules to make sure that I have this thing built properly. Yep, there's a hard assignment right there. Let's go into modules. Just 1 second. Make sure this is all published. Yes, yes, yes. We want to see that. Otherwise, we won't be able to view it as a student. So I'm going to do a switch from Nicholas Demas to Abraham Lincoln, and let me refresh this screen so we can take a look at these assignments. There we go. Here is the worksheet that is a spreadsheet. Let's go ahead and select that option. And as a student, I'll be able to go in here and look at this information. We'd already had some stuff filled out ahead of time, so that's there. But the student could go through and add these additional details. Well, let's make this proper, right? With Guinness stew. If you haven't tried Guinness stew, it's fantastic. And we can fill out this information. Maybe this is what we're doing as a tracker, but think about this in a different form. Or let's not just do a nutrition tracker. Think about using the spreadsheet in that accounting class. Think about it in chemistry if you're working through different experiments and you're looking at these results over time. Think about it how you are using in your courses currently. What can you do with a spreadsheet to gather student information or specific information for this for the student? And we'll go with soda bread as a second example. And so on. And there's additional functionality that we could work through with this. I could set it up to have things auto-calculated. I could set these parameters either as the instructor or the student to make sums and build the sums out of these columns and so on. So we do have the functionality of Google Sheets right here that we're going to be able to use through Canvas. All right, so we are going to submit this assignment. It is submitted. Let's move on to the next item. Submitted right there, March 17th, 11:20. Let's move on to the next item. And this is where we're going to take a look at the slide. We actually did the slides purposefully in this session because we're going to look at a little bit of a limitation that we might be dealing with if we're looking at these specifically through Canvas. It might be at times a little bit more advantageous to go back over to the Google Slides to work through this rather than do it through Canvas. You can see that now this has been noted before that the presentation area doesn't really give you a lot to work with. But we do have this view option where we can bump up our view to get a little bit more specific with these pieces. What I've done here is I've created just a worksheet where a slide where students are going to fill in a text box and denote these different parts of the heart. Let's be careful with that. Okay.
Nick?
Yes.
There's just a clarification I think that Warren's saying. So Megan from the chat says, so these are copies made for each student. They're not all working on the same spreadsheet or slide deck, right?
That is correct.
Okay, thanks.
Be careful with the sliding over. I grabbed just a little bit too much as I did this. And then I can move on to the next piece, and I can work through this as well. Let's break this view out just a little bit. It's right here. We're looking at the flow of blood through the heart. We're going to go into, again, I would build these rubrics around this so that I could better follow the process. And so on. And then I would submit this assignment. All right. Now we're going to jump back over to the instructor area and let's take a look at this. We're going to jump into the speed grader. I could just as easily go through grades to get to the speed grader, but I'm going to do it through this assignment. So let me hit speed grader. And here I will be able to see the student work through SpeedGrader. There it is as part of Crocodoc. And I could bring in the same tools that I've been using to highlight different pieces and showcase different ideas. Not much of a nutritionist, so you have to apologize. And as such, I can bring in my rubric and I can grade against the rubric, use that as part of the assignment, fill things out, and then be done with the process and move on to the next student. I'm not going to showcase that whole process just because we are running with some time constraints. Let me go to the next assignment. And here we'll go into SpeedGrader again, and this is going to be me taking a look at that student work. Now remember, the student moved that picture around a little bit. Didn't really dwell on moving that into the proper place, so I apologize for that. We're going to see just a little bit of skew when we are looking at this picture right here. Should have been over to the right, just a little bit better centered as I had set it up. But again, I can view this. I can take a look at the rubric, and I can grade this piece against the rubric if I set it up to do so, and I can work through these different pieces. You'll notice that this was a 2-piece slide, and here I am. I can go through and I can grade these specific pieces. Maybe I'm going to draw on this one. Let's give it a check. I guess green would be a nicer check color, wouldn't it? Check, 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 and so on to denote these things are correct or incorrect. Again, utilizing the different pieces with SpeedGrader to do so. And again, if we were to use it with docs, we'd have about the same setup with docs. We'd be able to look at the doc. Crocodoc would take a snapshot of that doc. We'd be able to take a look at a doc through Crocodoc, but have that worksheet that's going to be spread out between the different users. All right, I just wanted to go back. So we did have that question just to show that the students did receive a copy. This one doesn't have the marked up area that the student had with that piece. All right. So that's kind of an overview of cloud assignments. And we went off this, we played around with it just a little bit and tried out slides and slides and spreadsheets with that rather than going through docs solely, but keep docs in mind. It's probably where you're going to be using this mostly. Let's talk about a couple different Google LTI tips. We've mentioned this before, but if you have if you built in or brought in Google LTI at the course level, make sure that if it is, then again, it's installed at the admin level, that you erase it at the course level so that you don't have a duplicate. Consider overall when you're using Google Docs and different Google items, considering embed over inline when you are working through that. And one other consideration too is if you're still insistent on using slides, under the current setup, it makes more sense to grab the embed code like you used to for those slides and embed those into the HTML editor. That's one kind of quirky place right now. I'd urge you to be consistent overall in your naming conventions with your folders, or your files, and your overall information when you are using Google P components as well as Canvas. Also, remember to explain the difference between Google Doc and Google Drive to your students. Make sure that you are creating the rubrics first when you are building a cloud assignment. That one should deserve an asterisk on this, as yes, we do need to have that rubric first in order to have a rubric to use in our cloud assignments. All right, and as you might have seen, we saw that limitation with the Google Slides. If you are having students fill out a Google Slide as an assignment, they might consider jumping over to Google Slide side of things rather than working through Canvas in order to fill out that information. I think they'll have a little bit more space to work with when they do so.
Okay, great. Thank you, Nick. That was a great demo. We had some good chat conversation as well to kind of enhance some of the demos as people have worked through this as well. We just wanted to remind everybody we have one more Google LTI session in the series. We had 6 total, so the 6th one will discuss collaborative explosions. So what that basically means is we'll go into the collaboration tool and talk about how when you want to have a group of students work on one document together, what that would look like with and without the LTI. And then I just also wanted to reiterate the fact that we are having a panel. We're looking for people to participate in the panel discussion. So if you are a K-12 user and are interested in being in a panel discussion with our product manager, who is in charge of kind of gathering the feedback for the LTI. We're gathering people together so that we can have a good sort of feedback session and a share session. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Nick. Feel free to reach out to me. We're hoping to do this sometime mid to late April. So we'd love to hear your shared practices, some tips and some feedback. Some of you who have already shared that in the chat, which is great. But this would be a panel discussion with the product manager as well. We do have a Google forum in our chat rooms. So if you haven't participated in the Canvas Live chat rooms, you just go to live.canvaslms.com. There'll be a button to join the chat. Once you join the chat, you can go and do a search for the Google plus Canvas forum. And as you're working through these sessions, this is a great opportunity to kind of do live conversation, just like you did here in the chats, for those of you who are in the chats. And to kind of close out, just another reminder that please go to live.canvaslms.com and follow that space anytime any new sessions are added, not just for Google, but just for anything that we have on the events. You'll be notified for that. We have a Canvas Live user group. So if you are working and wanting to collaborate with other people in the community to present a topic or participate in a demo, that would be the place to kind of find your peers to collaborate on projects. And we're always having announcements in there about, about the things we're working on in Canvas Live, and if you are interested in sort of participating in that kind of activity. And then feel free to hang out in our Canvas chat rooms where we have a bunch of community members and they're kind of in the live space chatting as well on a bunch of different topics. There's a lot of different forums and things like that. Let's go over to the into the chat to sort of close out with any additional questions. Diane asks, if we're going to go back and answer some of the unanswered questions in the chat. Due to the lack of time, we're not going to do that right now, Diane, but what I'll do is I'll cut and paste this chat transcript. I'll put it into the event page, and then we will kind of target those questions individually. So yes, we are going to address those questions. No, not in today's session because of time. Okay. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you, Nick, for doing the demo. I will go ahead and post this recording on the event page, and I will also work through those questions, and you'll see those questions sort of posted in the answers posted in the chat in the event page as well. Perfect. All right, we'll have a wonderful weekend. We will see you hopefully in the next Canvas Live session. And if you have additional questions that you didn't post in the chat, go ahead and go to the event page and post them there as well. Awesome. Thank you so much. See you next time.